this right now, but mine's either therapy, motivational stuff, and then I'll get the random dance. I love dance, by the way. Like it's my guilty pleasure. I love watching people dance. What does your For You page look like?
Well, for a while there was a lot of orbs on it, a lot of drones, definitely some dancing, and I'm really into like sourdough people right now. Those are
What is that?
It's like I don't even know. There's this one girl specifically who is obsessed with sourdough bread, and she's so herself. I'm obsessed with her. I make my kids watch it. I'm like, oh my God. So that's kind of my For You page.
How many kids do you have?
I have two. I have a senior in high school. That's Caroline.
Oh my gosh.
And I know it's terrifying. And then I have a 15-year-old. He's a sophomore in high school.
That is wild.
Sully. Yeah, his name's Sully.
That's a great name. Do you call him, so his name's Sullivan, you call him Sully, or is his name Sully?
His real name is Sullivan, but we call him Sully.
My nephew is John Sullivan, named after my brother's name's John, but we call him Sully. So it's a that name. I love it. It's so sweet. Is he?
Yeah.
Does he live up? He lives up to Sully, doesn't he? He's a perfect.
He does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we refer to him as the Sul. Like he has like a hair that just kind of comes into the room first. Yeah, he's quite a character. He lives up to the name perfectly. Mm-hmm.
Where do you all live? Where do you live?
I live on Nantucket Island, which is a little teeny tiny island off the coast of Cape Cod. Yep. So we're 26 miles out to sea. I'm looking at the Atlantic Ocean right now. Yeah. That's beautiful. Where I live. Mm-hmm.
Is Nantucket Island where the Netflix show with Nicole Kidman takes place? Right? Where it's like the family.
That's so yes. Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. It's actually weirdly, Ellen Hildebrand, who's the author of those books, lives here. And ironically, most of that show was taped in Chatham. It wasn't even taped on Nantucket. But yes, the show is about Nantucket. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because Nantucket, and I could be wrong, but my bias is everything I see about Nantucket Island. Nantucket. Well, I'm saying it wrong. I'm from Kentucky. Bear with me. But it's interesting, and I think this is a great segue. Like it's great to see. I always tell everybody see everything with perspective. But when you're looking at it with perception, and you're just like, this is a bunch of, pinkies up, everybody's pilled up and drunk and sailing on their boat and miserable people. I mean, that's literally what they write it as, right?
It is. It's not inaccurate. Yeah. It's not inaccurate. The year-rounders, like the salty, like I'm a year-rounder, so I mean, it's very different. It's like there's the 1% of the 1%. They're here for about 2 months, and it's wild. But yeah, I love the year-round community. It's so great. So, that's part of, I think, what the glue that holds this place together is the way the year-rounders kind of operate. But that is, I think that show was pretty accurate in how it portrayed people, at least in the summer.
Paint the year-rounder picture for me, because so I'll let you go first. So you tell me, when you think of Kentucky, you can't say horse racing.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll do it this way too. What's your perception? Like, what would immediately, if you were to judge, what would come to mind?
Well, it's kind of like I'm kind of going to cheat a little bit, only because my best friend is from Louisville. So, her nickname is Aunt Crazy. So, and like that was before anyone had kids. So, that is my, like, when I think of Kentucky, I think of her. She went to U of L, and I'm a Syracuse person. So like our basketball teams, I think of U of L, I think of Louisville, I think of my best friend, literally. So I've actually never been to any horse race. She was a huge, I think she was Derby Day and all that kind of stuff. Like she was all in that. So, I've been adjacent to it. So my whole perception of Kentucky is through the eyes of Aunt Crazy. So,
which sounds lovely, to be quite honest. So that's good. But a lot of people think toothless, uneducated, trailer park,
Yep.
backwoods kind of. Yeah. So the Nantucket year rounder. What does a resident of Nantucket? I'm so intrigued. I know this sounds dumb. Is this like you said? You're looking right now at the ocean, right?
Yep. Mhm.
Do you take that for granted? First off,
I have to tell you, I was having this thought yesterday. We're moving to a place. I'm at a place like on the east end of the island, and it's so beautiful. It's called Tom Nevers. It's very like if there's a rural place on Nantucket, this is it. And I thought to myself yesterday, because I just look out the window and I see the ocean, we won't have this next year. And I was like, God, I got to keep getting that like experience in. So it's funny, like I do take it for granted sometimes. I really do. I do. And I love the fact that it's so quiet in the winter. I try to like really soak that up. I love the summer. I love it. It's so exciting. It's just like I don't know. I feel like Nantucket's a weird place. I'm sure like Kentucky can be. Every place has its quirks. But at the end of the day, what I love the most about Nantucket is it's very instant karma, at least for year rounders. Like you can't be a jerk and live here year round. You really just can't. It's too close. If you are out of integrity, you're going to be behind the person that you screwed over in the Stop and Shop the next day. Everybody's on top of each other. So we take really good care of each other out here. And that's what I like about it. I like
a
that,
day like I didn't mean to speak over you, but a day
no,
is a normal day for year rounders. Is you are always running into one another, and it's a
all
lot
the
of just
time.
that can be very endearing. That can be very sweet, or in your what your example is could be very disastrous for someone who's an asshole.
Yeah, if you're an
Yeah,
asshole, like you won't last here. At least, well, you will
yeah.
if you live here in the summer because you're only going to be here for 2 months. But if you live here year round, it's really hard to operate that way. You know?
It's a place that you have when you're going through Kentucky, because Kentucky is in the center of you're driving east, you run through
Yep.
Kentucky. You driving west, you go through Kentucky, north, south. Nantucket, you go out, you have to be intentionally going, right? So it's just
Mm-hmm.
a place that's almost, I don't know, it's almost this pie in the sky thing that most people will never ever visit it. So I
I
think
know
there's
it.
a beautiful intrigue there. Really,
It
it's really
is. It's
cool.
not easy to get here. I mean, like, I think that was the thing that when we were watching the show, like Nantucket is a character of her own. She is like she's got her own personality. She's something. So I feel like you've got to be a little bit weird to want to come here. It's kind of like I always say, like, at least year rounders, they're kind of like those fish in the tank and Finding Nemo. Like everybody's like a little bit off, like a little bit weird. There's
Good.
something slightly wrong with everyone that lives here, but we all kind of make it work. So yeah, but it's a unique place. You have to take a plane or a boat to get here. There's no bridge. It's removed. You got to be dedicated. Yeah.
Did you say it's 26 miles
Mm-hmm. Yep. 26
off?
miles off the coast. Yeah. Of Cape Cod.
That's amazing. That really is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm very intrigued. I have to one day make a trip there. Do people have? I mean, do they bring concerts there? I know that's a dumb question, but do they have shows and stuff, or is it locals coming and playing guitar in the corner?
It's kind of like there's one big thing we have in the summer. It's called the Boston Pops, like big thing at Jetty's Beach. And that's the big concert we have once a year. Everybody comes to the beach and, kind of sets up their boats out in the harbor. And, there's either a drone show or there's some kind of, firework display going on. But that's like really the only concert we have. Everything else is just kind of like private, like I'm sure that they've flown in to people to big houses, but it's mostly like just kind of isolated. But so most of the music we have out here is some dude, sitting on a stool at the brewery
Which is
playing his
totally
guitar.
cool. I was just curious. I highly doubt that the people of Nantucket are calling and booking Jelly Roll or something. Like,
No,
ladies and gentlemen, Jelly Roll.
exactly. It's too much of a pain in the ass to get here. He'd be like, no, I'm
Yeah.
not coming. I'm going to
So,
Boston.
have you all been into the Karen Reed? Have you all into the Karen
Karen
Reed
Reed.
trial?
What's that? I don't
Uh,
even know what that is.
so the Karen. So she is. You said Boston, right?
Yep,
So
yep.
her boyfriend in 2020. I might have the dates wrong, but she is that a dog? Is
You know,
that a
that's my
cat?
dog outside.
I
She's
love it. Let me
she's
in.
yeah, she's got the worst life ever. You know, she just takes
Oh
herself
yeah,
on walks.
sounds like it. Karen Reed, her boyfriend was the police officer, the Boston police officer. He was found in the snow, and they accused her of killing him.
Oh my God,
And then he was
Nathan, I never
outside
even
of.
heard about this.
It's been going on for a couple of years. There was a mistrial that was just announced this year, and so
Oh
now
my God.
they're going to put her on trial again. I guess is it April or May? But
Wow.
she's a college professor. She's of course an attractive woman. You know, she has such convincing story testimony, really. And then
Yeah.
they're saying that it was the Boston sergeant that lived in the house where his body was found outside. They think that he had something. Anyway, I was just
What?
curious if you all, yeah, there's something on, I guess it's HBO Max that shows, it's 5 episodes to kind of show the lead up to what they just announced last month or February, the mistrial.
Oh
God,
my
that is
God.
pretty
Now I'm
wild.
obsessed.
It's
Now I'm
it's
gonna have to check
it's
it out.
obsessive. So I think
Hmm.
it's one of those things, and maybe it's a little far enough removed. But I was just curious if you all are like, oh my God, Karen Reed, the reason why I also bring that up, she has this accent that you don't have, which
Yeah.
is, it's
The Boston accent.
it's very Boston. But there's also
Oh.
apparently, I know I'm getting in the weeds here, but apparently there's so many different types of accents there.
Hmm.
Which, because in the show they were talking about, oh, she has this like disgusting, begins with an M. I don't remember. Like, well, I guess where she's from. Like, she
Okay.
sounds more unintelligent with her Boston accent.
That makes
'cause of where
sense.
she's
That
from.
makes sense.
Anyway.
Yeah.
hmm
Wow.
So
Oh my God.
I'm glad we're able to connect. I really am.
Me too.
My For You page, I brought it up earlier, but you popped up, and I was like,
Oh.
okay. And then you start cussing. I'm like, hell yeah. But you're saying things that are substantive, like you're saying intelligent things. So I've been on this very, we can get into. I definitely I want you to just totally rip me apart today. That's the
Oh
goal.
my God.
Nothing,
Okay.
nothing is off limits on my end. But
Awesome.
I have two brothers, very tumultuous family. My mother, salt of the earth, kept everybody together. My dad was this. He was very disconnected, worked a lot, womanizer without you knowing. He was a womanizer. We would go to church. I grew up in the Catholic church, went to private school, played all the
Yep.
sports. All I wanted was affirmation from a father. So just very absent parent in that regard, abuse
Yeah.
and all of that. So I've been in my adult life, and you probably can with what you do. And I really want to get into what made you be crazy enough to want to peel back the onion of other people and really help that, which
Yeah.
is amazing. But my adult life, when I turned 35, I have 4 boys of my own.
Yeah.
And I had, it
Yep.
was like 10:15 at night, and not to get too in the weeds there, but there's some very, very traumatic things that happened in my life that I had suppressed, that I had obviously not addressed, you hear it all the time. And I had this massive panic attack.
Oh
And
God.
so
Yeah.
that was in
Yeah.
2019. And then
Okay.
my therapist, Karen, who specializes in this trauma, I called and left a message. They called me back about an hour later, and they said, let me guess, you're 35 years old, you're a father, you have a son who's 7 years old. I'm like, yeah. So that started this, for me, this journey of self, I don't know. I would say self-healing. I was going to say finding self, but I think we're always looking. But anyway,
Wow.
and that's when I found what you were saying to be just like really resonating because of this
Yes.
just honest, like the fuck and the shit and the, like, I don't know if you said that, but
Yeah.
you're not putting any sprinkles or cake batter on it. You're just saying the mess that it is. And
Yeah.
I think that's so admirable. So that's how I found you. I think it's important to know why we're even chatting today. And I want people who are listening, because I have a ton of followers who are in the funeral profession, who every day seem to suppress their own whatever it is they have going on and putting other people's shit in their backpack, right? And so you forget about
Absolutely.
self. So why in the hell, like, did you grow up and you're like, playing, what's your title first off? Because I don't want to call you the wrong thing.
That's a great question. First of all, like I am so grateful that you shared that. I have been following you and I love your page and I love this what you're doing. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I call myself a life coach. That's not really what I do. It's kind of like the safe label that I hide behind, or it's kind of the Trojan horse I use, but I help people remember like the essence and the truth of who they are. That's pretty much what I do. That's my apps. I'm like Teresa Caputo, like the Long Island medium for your soul.
That's awesome.
And
I like that.
it's my favorite. I've been like, sort of flirting with this for a really, really long time in many different ways, but I love it. And so it's my obsession. It's my passion. My work is probably one of the greatest loves of my life. And I'm so grateful that I have it. I'm so grateful that I found it. And like, even just having this conversation with you, I live for conversations like this. I live for them. I have a real hard time operating in a world that feels really fake. And I feel like if we're going to be ourselves, we have to be super real. And that's kind of my jam. That's what I do.
Well, it's what I call magnetic. So keep it, please. It's when you water yourself down or give only a version of self. And I understand there are parts that are sacred that obviously I'm not going to sit here and give my most intimate details, but you can still show up authentically. And I think that's great that you see that too. So someone who, I got to know what made you decide I'm gonna put what I'm thinking in my videos. I'm gonna put those out there on social media, TikTok specifically. That's where I found you.
Yeah.
Because have you been doing this a very long time? Or is this a relatively new venture as far as the social media?
In terms of the social media, I've been on Instagram for years, and I had a fair amount of success over on Instagram, but it's just like it's so curated. It's almost like I could put stuff out, but it just never felt like, you know what I mean? It was successful enough. And I have a coach who ironically he works with Aubrey Marcus, and he said to me, we're trying to build momentum in my business. And he said, this is literally, Nathan, I had been lurking on TikTok for a really long time, like probably since the beginning of COVID. I was like, what is this thing? And so I never like made things. I like played with it like a little bit. And so I was really just like a voyeur on TikTok. I was not
sounds so dangerous.
I know. I was creeping around on TikTok. So I never put stuff out there in a real way. I would just play with it. And like at the beginning of January, I'm writing a course, and Clayton said, you should get on there. You should see how you do on TikTok. And I was like, you think? I'm like kind of elderly, and he's like, you're fine. So
no,
I went on, and
you're nuts. No way.
So I was like, all right, I'll try it, and it like really felt like home. Like, I just don't know. I feel like that app favors authenticity. And I think that you've probably felt the same thing. Like, you're very, very true to yourself. And I think that that's why you have the sort of following that you do. I just really do. Where I don't, and no offense to Instagram, I don't think that app favors authenticity. I think it favors more of a curated sort of like vibe. But I felt like it was kind of cool to go in there a little fast and loose. And I felt like I could be more myself on the app. And I feel like it resonated with people. So, yeah, it's been working.
It does. It definitely does. It's funny you called yourself elderly. I think that what I found out is they are leaning heavily, which I think is amazing, because you have obviously not from a political, I don't want to get into politics, but the former administration is like, we're shutting this down. And then you were a part of course, like Magic Saturday one night. Where were you when the app was like, boop, went black? Just like went down. Were you on it, or were you?
No, I think, Nathan, I'm in bed by like 9:30, and I believe I was on the app earlier.
You
So
are
I
an old
think,
woman.
yeah, I was like,
I'm just
and good
kidding.
night. I am. Don't worry. It's okay.
Amazing.
Don't worry. So I was asleep. I was sleeping when the app went down, and I woke up the next morning, and my son Sully, who has a fair amount of followers on TikTok himself, he's like, "Mom, it's gone. It's gone."
Mhm.
And I hadn't really even started posting on there by that point. This is him right here. Is my son coming up. But he had told me the next morning that it was,
Sully.
yeah, Sully, they're saying hello. But he told me that it was gone, and I looked on the app, and it was just the weirdest thing. It was so weird. It was just like, wow. So that
Yeah.
was kind of shocking.
I was.
Yeah.
So you've only been really posting on TikTok since that, for the most part?
Yeah.
Is that what
I
you're
started posting there in January, really. I had a few videos up
you're-
from a few years ago, but yeah, this is brand new for me on this app.
Yeah, on TikTok specifically. I'm
Mhm.
gonna make sure I link all of your socials, but on
Thanks.
you, like, where are you? Right here. So let me see. 85,000 followers in like a month, a couple months,
Yeah,
pretty much.
Couple months.
That's
Yeah, a couple months.
yeah, that's amazing. And what do you feel? So I'm just so intrigued by this stuff. I love it. I really do. I obsess
too.
over. I don't know why people get caught in the. Okay, life coach. I'm all over the place because I have so many questions. By the way, so don't.
Oh my God, don't worry about it. It's great. I'll meet you anywhere.
I love it. That's
Listen.
that. I'll meet you anywhere. When the hell did human beings say, you know what? Fuck you and where you want to meet? Like I don't know if I'm asking it properly, but maybe you know what I'm trying to ask. It's like
Right.
I feel that the people who are willing to just like meet halfway or meet, I hear you. I don't have to believe your thoughts or whatever. Like when did we lose all of that? Do you feel as human beings?
I honestly feel like how did we get away from ourselves? Like how did we get here? I honestly feel like I got to sit with that for a minute because I think about that a lot. Because one of the things that I guess maybe it's important for me to kind of like frame what I believe authenticity really is and that's, I think, the opposite of what we're talking about is like whatever we're seeing around us is the opposite of what authenticity means. And I think that we've been moving away from that for a really long time. And, there's this thing happening right now where people are starting to, what I would refer to as quotation mark, wake up. It's kind of what happened to you in 2019. That I feel like people are starting to remember things and they don't know what they're even remembering. And I think that what we have co-signed on this planet for a really long time is you get to play a part. You get to play a role. Whatever that means. Maybe it's in your family. I'm an Irish person. I'm sure. Like,
51%, baby.
What? Yeah,
I am.
51%.
I'm 51% Irish.
Okay, perfect. See, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of thing. Like, I'm Irish. I grew up here. I have this. I am this. This is my family. That we start to assume this collection of like labels that qualify us, but nobody really knows who they are. And I work with people all over the world, anything from like, multimillionaires, that I know from this island to people in Australia. And what I believe people have been taught is the definition of success, whatever that means. If you have this, this, and this, you'll be happy and successful. And I think people are realizing like that is absolutely not true. And people are having these experiences, panic attacks. Some people call them a dark night of the soul. Some people call them a midlife crisis. Other people call them an awakening. And they're like, I can't live my life like this anymore, but I have no idea or no model of what it looks like. And I feel like the only way to really truly be happy is to be authentic. And authenticity is not about like, I'm nice, I'm a good person. Authenticity means I am the totality of all my trauma and shit and stuff I've been through, in my life, and the fullest potential of who I could be at the same time. And teaching people how to tune in to that information, which is always right there inside of them, and how to leverage it and alchemize it and galvanize it so that they can use it, to live the life that they're probably meant to be living, if that makes sense. So that's kind of what I do.
Do you have, you said you have a coach, or did you say you have a coach, or you said you were talking to your coach?
Right.
I mean, and so you have someone that you go to. I've always loved that. It's like, okay, so how I was going to ask, how do you fill your bucket? Because you're always taking your water and you're going along and you're gifting and you're sharing and you're encouraging, inspiring, and bringing people along with you. Like, so you have someone that you're able to help you replenish then.
Nathan, I have a team of people. Like, I really do. Like, I don't think you can do this and not have a team. So I have Clayton, who helps me with business stuff. And like I said, I'm really lucky. He works for Aubrey Marcus, and that's beautiful and has a beautiful community and just kind of gets it, quotation mark. I have a spiritual director, which helps me understand like how I interpret information. He's amazing. He's an older guy. His name is Nick, and he lives in New Hampshire. So he's super helpful. And then I have a therapist. And her name is Ami, and she's amazing. So I have 3 people that I really count on to help me keep myself on the up and up in that way, just to keep me supported so that I can support people the way that I need to, So that's kind of my team.
I think it's great to have a team, and thank you for sharing that. I wonder, so there was this point during and it's always, you're constantly moving forward. It feels like I move and I take so many awesome progressive steps, and then I feel like I kind of fall back a little bit. There was a point that I felt like I became a little codependent on my therapist.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And I call her name is Karen. So I'm like, but you're an awesome Karen. Cause don't be a Karen.
You're a good Karen.
Don't be a Karen. People that you work alongside and life coach and help and assist. There are moments it seems that you're noticing similar things that happens with them too.
Yeah. I try to. I think it's. I feel like when you get to that level of intimacy with somebody, like I know my clients. I'm sure you and Karen have had similar conversations. Like, I know my clients probably better than their family members know them. I know their childhoods. I know how they process things. I know their gifts. That's my job, is to help them like remember those things and to identify them. So, one of my most important things is to create an experience or an environment where somebody is able to do really good work. And I think in order to create an environment like that, I have to love them. I have to love them very well and unconditionally. And I have to be very not judgmental and make them feel very, very safe. And so sometimes people have never experienced that level of support and love and care. And it can get really tricky boundary-wise, because I do love my people. And, I feel like in order for somebody to do really good work, they have to feel very supported and loved. So I feel like just as human beings, because we're so starved to be loved and seen and heard and understood, that it's hard not to become, in some ways, codependent. I don't think anybody has it figured out. I can't be fully detached from my clients. I just can't. They are kind of like my soulmates. So I can understand how that could happen. I try to keep that very clean and clear. I make it clear with my clients, like what my boundaries are, and I respect theirs very much, but I can see how that could happen. I can definitely see how that can happen. Yeah.
I could see, because of your passion with what you do, and I'm only speaking from being able to relate, I guess. And I always am very hesitant to say, oh, I feel maybe I can relate. Because I always tell people on my videos, I'm like, don't say I know how you feel, because you don't. Like, stop. But what I'm just trying to get at is like there is this obsession for me. Like, I obsess over making sure people feel loved, heard, appreciated, honored at the cost of myself. Mm-hmm. I mean, it cost, transparently speaking, it cost me my my marriage, my
I believe
relationship,
that.
you know? Do you see, like, in your work too, it becomes this thing that it's just your guiding light. It's not work. It just is. Is that what it is with you?
Mm, boy, that really resonates with me. And I can see what you're saying in your work. I see that. I can absolutely see that. Oh, boy, that's a really hard one because I'll tell you, I have I God, I can relate to that. It's a hard question to ask. I was told by someone um, when I was trying to understand what my work means, that my work is one of the greatest loves of my life. Like it's a passion, it's a call. I don't know, a calling, without trying to sound like an egomaniac or whatever. But it is all consuming. It just is. It's just what you said. I am constantly trying to. I'm driven by something. I'm not quite sure what it is. I'm sure you can relate to that. And I've had to be really careful with it because it's so good and it feels so amazing and it feels like home to be in that space, that everything else seems sometimes a little pale in comparison. So my relationships, I'm lucky that I have really great relationships and people that respect this thing that I do, including my children. But I am lucky. I have a partner that's very supportive of this and really champions that. And I think in order to have a calling like this, you have to have a partner that supports it because it is very all consuming. And maybe you can relate to this, but my work is probably one of the greatest loves of my life, without a doubt. It is.
Right.
It's a wild experience.
It's there's this element of it's dopamine release, knowing that I'm serving well, loving well, people
Yes.
responding, and I feel that my struggle for the season that I'm in is maybe going to be touring this fall and connecting and being,
Amazing.
which is awesome, right? So
Yeah.
but until then, it's like I want that hit, like I'm chasing it, and then when I don't have
Mhm.
that, I don't feel alive.
Mhm.
And that's a weird thing to say because I have 4 boys that I love more than anything. And when I even just talk about the amount of love I have for them, I get this lump in my throat. Like, that is love. That is love. And so
Absolutely.
there's that,
Absolutely.
but not having a connection where there's an opportunity for me to positively impact someone. I'm not saying I'm this God that stands on a podium, like up on this pillar, but I intentionally stand on that pillar with the platform I've given and saying, love you, and this is how I'm going to show you love. I'm going to show you love, show you love. If I don't have that opportunity, then I might as well just lie in the dirt until I stop breathing. I mean,
I totally
not,
agree.
and it is the Catholic faith. I was raised Catholic, and
Me
whether
too.
people are faith-filled or not, I do respect them. I'm not forcing beliefs, but corporal works of mercy, burying of the dead is one of them, and it's an appointment. It's not like you wake up and you're like, hell yeah, let's go be sad as shit. But it's almost like, I'm gonna drop this on your heart, and it is the thing, and that's I take it very seriously. And someone like yourself, who,
Yes.
because I think people are selfish. We're naturally selfish, but just from even further than that, now we are all, seems to have to be, we're out for self. And so it's
Hmm.
so endearing and refreshing for someone like yourself who is, has pulled back that level, obviously from what you do, pulled back that level of maybe just extreme selfishness so that you're able to, I'm going to focus on you and you and you. And it's just, it's refreshing, and I appreciate that.
Sure.
What is, like, one of the most proud moments, or what's something that you are just so proud of with the role that you have and what you were able to do with it, if you can speak to it generically, perhaps? And I know that's a massive question in the sense of, like, you probably have a lot of really
Yeah.
cool things, but what's something that, I'll hone in even more. What's something that, like,
Yeah.
that changed you? that really changed you with regard to your work?
Well, I think what changed me is I've been sort of circling this, whatever this is, probably since I was a child, like kind of getting in that, not really understanding. It's like, like you had said, like peeling back the layers of the onion a little bit. But I think one of the things that I really hang my hat on is I'm not going to give somebody directions to places I haven't been or wouldn't go. I won't. I just don't feel an integrity. Integrity means everything to me. And I mean that if I can't say it with my chest, I'm not going to say it. And I feel like, it was probably a little bit, I had probably a moment like you did. I've had many in my life. I've always felt a little different and weird, and I'm sure you can relate to that. My family's business in Philly for decades was funeral directors. That was like my family's business. Ironically,
you know it.
Yeah, I do. I mean, not as intimately. Obviously, I was removed from that. My father, my great grandmother, was a funeral home director and in Philly for forever. I think she was one of the first female business owners of her kind like that. So I mean, that's part of it. But I think it was about 2015 or 16, I had a moment like you did. I had been in and out of therapy my whole life. I had panic attacks when I was a little girl, and I didn't have the kind of support that I probably needed to navigate that. Like, I've said many times, like when you have a moment like that when you're 10 and it's 1987, you're not like a gifted intuitive. You're a crazy Irish Catholic kid that has problems. And I just felt really lonely my whole life. And I never felt like I really fit anywhere. And I feel like what I did know was I understood people. And I think it wasn't until, I had a huge collapse and a big dark night of the soul, which was about 2015 to 16. I've never felt like that before. I've never felt that bad. I really felt pretty hopeless and didn't really know where I was going to go with it. And I feel like I had to get to that level within myself in order to show up for people the way I do. I understand what it feels like to be misunderstood. I understand what it feels like to feel lost and alone. I understand what it feels like to feel really dark and hopeless. And I wanted people to find meaning in those things. And I've been trying to do that forever. I used to own a bar, and, I'm doing the same job I'm doing now when I own the bar. It's the same exact job. And then when I sold that and I went back to school for exercise science, I became a strength and conditioning coach. Same job. I was watching people at the bar try to solve their problems with, whale's tail pale ales and,
I love
pop off.
pale ale.
I do too, actually. And then when I left the bar business and I went into the fitness industry, I watched people beat themselves up with exercise and call it health. And I feel like, you just get closer and closer to the core of what it is. But I think really when I fell apart was when it changed me. And I feel like that's where it allows me, it takes a lot to scare me off. There's not a lot of places I feel like I'm not equipped to go with somebody. And if I haven't been through something, one of my clients has been through it. And I'm not scared of whatever it is that person brings to the table, ever. I will not be scared off. So I feel like that's kind of what has changed me. And I felt like there were people that never could sit with me in that place. I had to figure out how to do that and become that for myself. And once I was able to do that, I was able to find people to have in my circle to support me better. But I think that's the kind of love people are looking for, of people that are not going to get scared off by their difficulties and just sit with them and hold space.
I think it's a superpower because
agreed.
It's uncomfortable. Some people, grieving people, broken people, sad people, including
Yeah.
I've been there, so I'm not pointing a finger, but it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to share some of that grossness. It's uncomfortable. You know, you watch documentaries where, you know, you're far enough removed and it's not part of your profession, but you hear some of the disgusting things that people have experienced and gone through, and it's sad. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's what do you think? Do you think that you know, we talk about Instagram and TikTok and all of that. Do you think it is just totally brain rotting us too, though? As far as, you know, making us feel lesser than, making us feel, you know, I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
You know, it's a great question because I think it's kind of what we talked about before. Like it just depends. Like what I teach is to help people tune into their bodies. You know, like and I just had this experiment the other day of like realizing in a real sort of, I don't know, body way, like what makes me feel the ick and what makes me feel great. And, you know, I think when it's so weird because when and no comparison, no judgment at all, but like when I get on Instagram, it feels a little bit more icky. It feels more like the comparison stuff, you know?
Have you not
And it's
experienced, like, do you people like give you shit? Or do you not get that much? Or is it more on Instagram?
I do.
What you're getting at, where you get a lot of the shit, but in on like a TikTok world, you're not getting those shit?
Oh, I get shit. I get it a lot.
Does that bother you, or
know,
not at all?
No, I'm too Philly. Like I love a good.
love
People. Somebody said to me, like, you know, I consider myself to be a spiritual teacher, but I'm equal parts healer and hood. I've always said it. So I'm petty. Like I'll come for it. I'm like, I love sarcasm. Somebody comes through with some sort of insult. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. You can take me out of Philly, but you can't take the Philly out of me. I'm going for it.
I love it.
Yeah, so I'll go for it. But that's like that actually I have more. I find that somewhat funny and endearing. Like it doesn't bother me. I'm not like, oh God, somebody made a comment about my appearance. I'm like gonna go cry somewhere. I really have done a lot of work to like myself. So it takes a lot to like rattle my cage at this point. But I think the ick that I'm talking about is the inauthenticity. That drives me crazy when people are not real. It makes me, that gives me the ick. That gives me a big ick, and I can spot it real quick.
A mile away, obviously. Social, you can spot it even virtually. Do you have business owners that come to you for coaching, and who, you know, when I was running the company before I sold, I did have one of my biggest, I would say my biggest leadership flaws was I wanted 11 locations and all of the team members at all of the locations to like me.
Right. Totally.
Like I want to punch myself in the face and slam myself against the wall like now. But when you're in that, is that a common thing with a lot of your
God,
business?
yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
I've had that too. Or like some people go exactly the opposite way. It's like
opposite.
Yeah, like there's self-protective stuff, like people pleasing or wanting people to like us. Like that's a self-protective mechanism. It's like, let me modify your perception of me so that I feel safe. Or the opposite side of the same coin, which is typically where I went to protect myself. Like sensitive souls do one of two things. They're either going to people please or they're going to become assholes. I went the other way. I was like, I was an asshole. Like I really was. And that's how I ran my businesses. I was like, I don't really give a shit whether you like me or not. Like, I'll just terrify you. And so it's interesting when we're healing, like, you know, I just had to stop being an asshole. I had to like kind of take down my armor and remove some of my self-protective gear. I find it much harder, or at least historically from what you're saying, like when we have that propensity to please people or want people to like us, I find that to be harder for people. Because you're going against, you know, a socially acceptable trauma response. Those are the hard ones to dismantle because, you know, society's like, nice people are the right kind of people. And it's like, okay, well, if I'm typically modifying people's perceptions of me in exchange for acceptance, when I start to set boundaries or I start to say no, they get uncomfortable and I get uncomfortable, and I'm going against societal norms of what a good person is supposed to do and be. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's
Yes.
harder. I have a lot of respect for that. Yeah.
Do you have, so you said you were running businesses and you were the asshole, and I'm not calling you
Big
that,
time.
I'm just quoting. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
So I would call it, to be able to work through that, I would call it healing or growth or whatever you want to call it. For me, I have struggled to forgive myself.
Oh, yeah.
So do you have like what, for the people who you work alongside and are coming to you for coaching? I mean, what are your encouraging words or things that you do to work through that? Because I mean, like, that in and of itself fucked up so much. It really did.
Oh, I get it. I get it. I get
It
it.
did, because then you set the boundaries you were just talking about, and people are
Yeah.
like, what the fuck? Who are you? You're not the same. You're not the same.
Yes.
You're not. I don't even recognize you. That was one of
That's-
the recurring statements I heard. And then it got so, like, for me, it got so big. We grew so fast. And then it was just, because there were immediate boundaries and things like that, then there became this target on my back.
I
And then
understand.
there became this, like, yeah, but how the fuck? I don't want to say how, like it's impossible, but how the fuck is someone able to just like forgive? And because I have a memory like a fucking elephant, it's the worst thing in the entire world, by the way. Especially for someone who's experienced trauma, it can.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I obsess with work and just, I do the thing that I had to work through by putting it under the rug to just keep moving on. But like, I remember everything. So like, how do I forget? Like, how do you forgive yourself? Like, how do you fucking say, Nathan, you were a dumbass and it's okay, move on, fix me?
Oh, man. Oh, that's such a great question. Well, let me ask you this. Like, what do you feel like you can't forgive? Like, give me some ideas about what you mean. What do you mean?
Well, I had two things happen at the same time. In 6 years, when you grow to 11 funeral homes, that's a lot.
It is.
And then, my marriage at the time was just going to shit. I had 4 kids. I have 4 kids, beautiful children, growing this empire from outside looking in. There's the successful business person. There's the social media was blowing up right at the peak of the pandemic. I mean, this is all happening during a pandemic. I'm going bonkers. I don't know if I'm answering the question, but I think it's like,
I think you are.
I had to pick the red or the blue pill, and I picked the blue pill, which is creating and music and content and all of that.
I love it.
And I think that I know I made the right decision, but that's
You did.
what I think about. I think about, like, I grew this. Like, I love these people. I sold this abruptly. It would have killed me. It would have.
I can see that.
Me.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you go back to my videos from 2 years ago, I've Benjamin buttoned. I've had no work done, but I look like I'm dying. I really do. I'm gaunt, like, what's the word? Gaunt. Like, I have the biggest bags under my eyes. I'm pale. I look sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think maybe forgiving myself that I even allowed myself to get there, I guess. Like, what the hell was I doing it for? Would I have to
wow,
prove,
this is great
maybe?
conversation. We're about to blow
what'd I
your
have to
mind.
prove? Yeah. What'd I have to prove?
Yeah, we're about. Well, it's interesting too. Like, first of all, like let's lay some groundwork here, because this will be fun. Like, this will actually be really fun. Like, you can't help what you feel. You can't help it. And I imagine at that time, there was like there was a reckoning happening. I can see it. See, this is where I start to get into my brain, and I'm like, I can see what you were going through at that time, and I understand. It's like everything on paper makes sense, but it's like something's off, and it's not off by a little bit. It's off by a lot. In other words, like, it's like if I checked my Excel spreadsheets, like the math is mathing. I am on target to have this gorgeous, amazing life experience. Like, I got these 11 places. I got the right people in place, like whatever it looks like. But the insides don't match the outsides. The more that continues to move in that direction, the more something inside of you starts to die, right? So there's a non-linguistic intelligence that we all have access to at all times. And I can't believe, like, I get emotional thinking about it because I'm so excited to talk about this with you. I can feel it. I understand what that's like. And it's like, there's that part of us that is desperate for us to listen. And we just override it again and again and again, either in major ways or in incremental ways. Either way, there's just like copious amounts of self-betrayal happening. We're overriding that non-linguistic intelligence. And I call that non-linguistic intelligence, that dark, dense, heavy energy, our inner child. That's what I call it. You know, other people call it your nervous system. Some people call it your emotional stuff. Other people call it depression or anxiety or grief or guilt or whatever fuck the amalgamation of these emotions are. Other people call it trauma, whatever. It's all different language for the same thing. And really what it is really dark, heavy, dense emotion. Another way of saying it is dissonance. It's when we're moving away from something that's true, and we're moving away from something that desperately needs us to understand its non-linguistic wisdom. And if we ignore that for long enough, something begins to happen, right? We start to feel the physical impacts of it. I'm sure you did. I did. And then, the universe is like, well, I've given you message after message after message. You don't seem to be listening. So I'm going to just blow your life up. I'm just going to blow it up. Or you'll blow it up, or we'll just collaboratively blow that shit up. And it usually blows up in terms of like a divorce or some infidelity or an illness or bankruptcy or some sort of something. It's usually, if it's not dramatic in a literal sense, it's dramatic in a physical sense. Some people call it a nervous breakdown. I don't know. It's some kind of crisis, because people only change under one of three circumstances. They're going to be inspired, they're going to be frustrated, or they're going to be desperate. Desperation just works the best. So I imagine that's kind of what you got to. Is that true?
That is 1000% true. And in December of 2022, and I've never shared this, but I feel safe to do so. It's taken 2 years. So almost 2 years. I sold the company in July of 23. It was my baby. We bought the first funeral home in 2016. I mean, I didn't grow up in the profession, right? I was poor as hell too. So it was like,
yep.
To make that happen and to become, it became everything. Like the identity, my entire identity was that company. And in December of 22, at the very end, I was like, I am about to die. Like, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
I literally, it sounds dramatic, over dramatic. But I was literally telling myself, if you don't stop, you are going to die. So I made the decision I was going to take a sabbatical. So I was getting all the pieces in place. I mean, getting everything in order, and I was going to take the sabbatical in January. And then I'm trying to say all this, so I'll just be very blanket there. But then something happened that was not. It was not done for the betterment of the company. It was done for the betterment of something else, and not by me. So I stepped in immediately, and because it was my baby. I was like, you know what? I'm not taking a sabbatical. And then from there, all fucking hell broke loose. My body, knowing that I was taking a sabbatical up to that point.
You're just right there.
I was so like, yep. I felt it. Like, I was like, this is exactly it. This is it. I'm good. And then whenever I pop back in, like, I heard my inner child say, "You're fucked."
What are you doing to me?
Yeah.
What are you doing to me?
It was. I don't know. And this is no way poor me, because there are people I hope connecting with someone, but I don't know how I survived.
I understand completely. I
really
can
don't.
feel that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
I think that people, I don't know what has disconnected us from ourselves, our inner child, to not listen, to not acknowledge, to not make ourselves feel, I don't know, like deserving, maybe.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, it's
Yeah.
it's a scary place. And I know I'm not the only one. I would assume that a lot of the people that you've worked alongside, even in the they experience this kind of stuff. This moment where it's like, I'm not gonna listen. It's fun. Everything will be good. And then you're just like, fuck up your life.
Yeah. We're just going to just,
gotta,
they're just going to throw just a stick of dynamite into your life right now. Yeah. But it's just like, it's funny because I don't think that unless that happens, that we're going to get it. I don't think people realize the cost of it. I so understand what you're saying. So what it sounds like is like you started to listen. I always say the call's coming from inside the house. Like if you grew up in the 80s like I did, every 80s kid knows what that means. It's like a terrifying thing. But anyway, it's just like there's that non-linguistic intelligence. It's like, you need to pay attention to me. And I'm going to give you a massive amount of discomfort to let you know that I'm speaking. And I think that's it, Nathan. Like this is the bone I have to pick, on this. That is intelligence. That is not mental health. That's not an illness. It's not a sickness. It's not something to be monetized. It is intelligence. There's a part of you that is so wise and knows you so well and needs you so much that it's unwilling to give up trying to communicate with you. And if it takes blowing up your life to get your attention, then so be it. It's worth it. It's worth it to have that relationship. Mm-hmm.
That January, for me, realized that I was not gonna, people please and stuff, and that's where it's like I'm no longer gonna live for them. I'm going to do and be the best version of myself, and that's when shit hits the fan too, because people are like, "How dare you? You're supposed to march in this line to get to we want this mediocrity, right? We want you to be in the mediocre line." Does that resonate to you? You know what I'm saying?
100%.
You're
100%.
embarrassing me by stepping out and being exceptional. We need you here. Yeah.
You nailed it. And well, here's the cost of authenticity. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, the most important relationship you're ever going to have for the rest of your life, really, there are two. Number one is with your inner child. The other is with your higher self. Like those are the two most important relationships any human being's ever going to have ever. And it's not selfish, it's self-full. And that's the Trinity right there. It's you, that little boy, and that 95-year-old version of you. Those three are the goats. And if little things don't happen to big souls, Nathan, like that's just the way it goes. Little things don't happen to big souls. So if there's big things happening, there's a big calling. And, especially when you have a bright light, and not to blow smoke up your ass. So, like, I'm not here to be a sycophant. If you have a bright light, you have a big shadow. The brighter the light, the bigger the shadow, as we know. And, what we have to remember is like when we have that kind of energy, it attracts people into our space, most of which who have not accessed their own light. So they sort of, without one shred of judgment, have a tendency to ride the energetic sweat off our back and require us to stay put in a certain identity so that the two biggest needs of the human ego can be satisfied, which is number one, certainty. I know what to expect. I know how to create an environment I can manage. And number two, an identity. So when somebody starts to reclaim their energy and reclaim their authenticity, and other people in our lives have really got kind of cozy and comfortable with seeing us in the identity that gives them their certainty and their relevance, they're not super psyched about it, especially if they haven't accessed their own. So the first thing they're going to do is come for you. That's a telltale sign that you're doing it right. And it's basically like, one of the things I've really practiced, it's like you got two ways to be significant and be relevant. You can build the tallest building in town, which takes a lot of energy and a lot of effort and a lot of grit and a lot of belief in yourself. Or you can tear that building down. Certainty and significance. That's how it comes. It's just a lot cheaper, easier, and takes a lot less talent to do the latter. So that happens a lot when we start to reclaim. Yeah.
People also will weaponize that reclaiming too. And
big time.
They'll call it and define it. Like my mental health has been weaponized against me so
Wow.
much in the past almost 2 years, which is insane to think about. I equated
Mm,
it to you ride the public I don't know why I'm saying bus, but let's just say you get on the bus and there's a lovely gentleman and you all get off at the same spot and you recognize that gentleman has a little limp and you look and he has a prosthetic leg. And so it's the equivalent of me ripping his prosthetic leg off and start beating him with it. Like, that's what I was like trying to like, because I'm like, who wouldn't have some like mental health or whatever you want to call it? Literally, the life that I've always known has imploded. And then
yeah.
you have this small group of individuals led by someone and saying, "Look at you, you crazy person."
Yep.
That's maniacal. That's insanity. Anyway, I don't know how to like
Oh, we can get into that. That's
like
that's
that's something that has been, when stuff happens, like through the works that you do, when stuff
yes.
this profound happens in someone's life, like I had two choices. I lie down and fucking die, literally,
Yep.
or
Absolutely.
I get the fuck to work. It was
Yep.
the most painful experience of my life.
I
I
believe that.
went from in the like those that I work alongside and love, like they would have run to the depths of hell with me,
Mm-hmm.
like through anything, right? And I longed for connection and being in physical space with, and I loved it, right? Like that's how I refill. Some people like to read a quiet book in the corner, and that's how you refill. And then I went from all of that I knew, reclusion,
Yep.
seclusion, isolation, silence. That is the
Yeah.
scariest thing in the
You're in the
world
dark
for
night.
someone. It was so scary and terrifying. It was so
Dark night of the
terrifying.
soul. Big
Yeah,
time.
but get into it. I don't know where I'm going all over the place. So you got to reel me back in, sister. You got to use your Nantucket reel. Do you fish, by the way?
Oh, terrible fisherman. My brother's
Okay.
the fisherman in the family. Yeah. Interestingly, because what you're describing, Nathan, is you're describing a textbook dark night of the soul. Like that is a textbook dark night of the soul. And honest to God, I don't love going through them, but I love helping people move through them. I love coaching through them. But this is the way I describe the dark night. The dark night of the soul is basically a metamorphosis. I think most people go through at least one, sometimes 7 in a lifetime. I really prefer not to go through another one like that. I can understand completely what you're describing. Oh my
Please,
God, it's hell.
do not
It's
ever
hell.
do this.
It's hell.
Do this happen.
It's an initiation. Let's put it that way. But my God, is it brutal. So think of it this way. Like the dark night is a reorganization where you basically reclaim your fucks. You know, like basically the universe is like, well, that was really cool. You had a nice character development protocol, but you're getting a little far off of what you're supposed to be doing. And so we're just going to help you reorganize here. And what happens is the dark night, everything begins to get reorganized. You know, it's a chrysalis moment. Just as you described, it's very insular, very isolating. It's very dark. You know, we'll describe many, many other analogies if we need to about what that means. But you're letting go of an identity that you know you don't have anymore. You're letting it go, but you haven't like sort of 3D printed the next identity yet. So you're stuck between those two places. And it's when a massive transformation happens. And when I sit with those places and people, you know, we can sort of like pathologize it. We're like, oh, let's see where you are. You're in a dark night of the soul. And they're like, what the hell is that? I'm like, well, it's why you feel like shit. It's why you feel this way. It's like why you feel like you're going to die, because there are parts of you that are dying. They have to, because they're not going to fit through the door of where you're going next. They're not. And they have to be removed, dismantled, repurposed, alchemized, whatever you want to use those phrases for. But the version of you that's uploading is going to need to reorganize in order for you to claim that. And this is where friendships fall apart, marriages fall apart, businesses fall apart. Family members can't understand it. It is so hard for people to understand it. And I think that, when we're going through something like that, there's no place to go but in, but it's the last place you want to go. It's kind of like, I call it the Helen Keller moment, where, we have to go inside and sort of greet this part of ourselves that we've been abandoning again and again and again and again. And we don't want to sit in it, but it's the only way to get through it. And we become acquainted with a part of ourselves that is, like I said, the most important relationship we're ever going to have. And the only way to get real close with that is to become intimate with some of these darker emotions. And it's, oh man, it's not fun. It's not fun. But the good news is, and I'm sure that you've described this, like when you look at pictures of yourself pre-Dark Night, right? You could see that the death was already happening, right? It was showing up, and that you hold your issues in your tissues, babe. It's showing. You go into the Dark Night and you definitely feel like you're going to die, and you come out of it. And I guarantee, and maybe I'm crazy, but you probably feel better now than you've ever felt in your life, I would imagine, or close to it.
No, 1,000%.
It's worth it. Yeah.
Everything that you're talking about, I sold my company, divorce, and literally decades old friendships.
Yes.
Gone.
Gone.
Nothing.
Gone.
Yes,
sir.
I don't want to say nothing, but to paint that picture, like, and then that actually opens my eyes, or opened them, and I'm constantly mindful of, on paper, the balance sheet, it was beautiful. Like if you look at it, I could walk in anywhere, and I'm saying this as in no way puffing my chest, but am I saying this to say to everyone who's listening, like, I could have gone into a bank and secured anything. I could have bought anything. And then I have literally overnight, essentially, fucking nothing. And those two comparisons, I say, they don't make you any happier or less happy.
No, they don't.
Not at all. And it was through all of what you just said so lovely that I would fumble around and saying, like, you get busy living, or you get busy just fucking. And I still feel like there's like that, the death of the old self, or this thing that wasn't really me. I'm still not entirely sure to walk through that door. Like I'm not sure yet. I know where
Awesome.
I see it.
We're going to talk about this. Okay.
Yeah.
I got it.
Door,
I got it.
but I haven't walked through it yet.
No problem. This is a great conversation. So I want to kind of walk you through a few things.
I really do. I told you we were going to dissect me, and I hope people see and hear the level of care that you have, because this is a podcast that's supposed to be about you, and I guess we're using your tools, showcasing them rather. So
oh my God, please use it. Please use it, because I honestly, God, I know that this is me. Just being able to sit here with you and talk about these things. This is Nathan. This is awesome, and I'm so grateful for it. So Nick, my spiritual teacher, he always says, Trish, give a healing, get a healing. So we're the same. There's no difference between you and me, and there's no difference from anybody listening. Yeah. If I can relate to what you're saying, I receive just as much from it. So I'm just grateful for it. So let's talk about the door. Let's talk about that. So I want you to think of dissonance. I'm gonna give a bunch of analogies here, and I want to show you how to listen to what's happening. Like intuition and your inner child, or intuition, your higher self, they're all just frequencies. They're communicating with you all the time. Intuitive parts of us are just as real as shameful parts of us. So, if we think about how we're going to use your accelerator and your brake here a little bit, and show you how, like, to leverage this information about where you're going to go next. Like Stella is right now, wanting to get inside. This God forbid she doesn't. Stella's really good at this.
In and out.
Yeah, in and out. This is Stella's world. We're just living in it. So if we think about like dissonance, which is what I need to heal, that's everything that was coming up during the dark night. Everything that you needed to heal was coming up. And it's funny because when you start healing, you feel like you're dying because everything that you've repressed starts to come up and you start to feel it. Everything that you've skirted away from and everything like that. And you have to have that happen because trauma, which is probably what you were reconciling at that time, Nathan, trauma, what stays inside of you makes you sick, but what comes out of you and moves through you doesn't. So when you're going through a dark night, it feels terrible, but it's like not going to last forever. I think that's important to note. So if you're in a space like that, it's not going to last. But once you start to move through it and you're like, wow, that was really hard, but now what do I do? Like, what's the next thing? Like, how do I figure out how to move? The other part of the same equation, on the other side of the same spectrum of dissonance, which is all that dark stuff, trauma, discomfort, is something called resonance. It's what brought you and I together. You resonate with me, I resonate with you. You see something when you're watching me that helps you remember something. There's like juice, right? There's something that feels like North Star. It's a compass. So dissonance points us to what we need to heal or when we're out of alignment with something. Resonance points us in the direction of where we're supposed to go or where our people are or where opportunities lie. But it's like one of these things that, like, I think you had even used the word pie in the sky before, like that part of us that remembers that we're supposed to be doing something. Like I remember the first time I ever got off the boat on Nantucket, I was 24 years old. I got off the boat for the first time and I was like, I'm supposed to live here. I knew it. Like, it just kind of like, you just kind of know that. Or when you asked me to be a part of the podcast, I was like, oh, that's a hell yes, 100%. Like it's a non-linguistic intelligence that reminds you of where you're supposed to be going. And you know it because you feel it. It resounds in your body. So I guess like part of the question I have for you, if we're figuring out like where that door looks, it's going to be through resonance. Resonance is going to help you figure that out. So like what is really resonating with you right now? Like where are you drawn? Where's the juice? Follow your bliss. Where is that?
It's my music. I mean, it's the creating, the music, the content, just the podcast. I love the idea of constantly connecting with, and I'm 39, which I know that's young, but I grew up in the music industry. And then the young Nathan grew up in the industry that was like, if you haven't broke, quote unquote, by 25, 24, you're old.
Mm-hmm.
So which is so stupid to think about, but so the resonance is touring and connecting. And because the story is, I know what resonates with people. It's grief that brings us together. It's this idea that we all want to feel a part of a fucking community so bad. We do. And feel seen. That's it. You said it earlier. You're talking about feeling seen. That's what we want. We long for it. And,
yes, we do.
I think that's what resonates with people. Therefore, that's my resonance.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I'm so fearful of that too, because
that makes sense.
I fought for over 2 years for for a schedule with my kids and joint custody. Because it was all under the guise of I'm not well and so there's this element of like I want to protect that schedule too at all costs. Because God for fucking bid someone tries to fuck with. You get what I'm saying? Like Papa Bear.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And like how and I've always been told through all this too, even the most, I know you have heard this too. You're so fucking selfish. I didn't even know what the word I didn't even know, which I was joking with you about on your For You page, narcissists and shit like that. I didn't even know what that meant. Like, and everyone apparently now is a narcissist, but I've been so fearful of making like any decision that would come off as like hyper selfish and whatever. So there's that. Anyway,
I like
know
that.
It's like a very just all over the place, but I feel like the resonance is the music. I mean, like I write authentic songs. I love fucking performing. And
Hmm.
the thought of being on
Awesome.
stage and just, it's for me, it's not even the attention. Yeah,
No.
I don't give a fuck. I really don't. The ego, the human in me is like, oh, cool. A few hundred people are clapping for me. That's awesome, right? But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to look at someone who I can, I have hyper, I know, I know who's hurting. Like I can feel it. I see that.
Absolutely.
And to look at them and to just give them that affirmation and acknowledgement for me is
Mm-hmm.
what I want so fucking bad. And so that's the door I want to walk through.
Perfect.
Um, yeah.
You left, that is the perfect example of what I'm talking about. Because I want you to see your brakes and I want you to see your accelerator. Authenticity is very specific to the individual. And it's nobody's job to understand you but you. It's it. And resonance and dissonance or, intuition and, healing are really attached to the same string. They're just the same thing. Like shame is on the same spectrum as enlightenment. They're the same. And it's interesting because what you're saying here is like this is so textbook. It's really like, honestly, Nathan, like what we're even talking about right now is it has a word. It's a phrase called quantum entanglement. I'm just going to put it out there. It's a very fancy word. But quantum entanglement is when we're talking about paradox. We're talking about when two things are true at the same time. And when we start to really pull together our authenticity, it requires a healthy dose of narcissism. Everyone has narcissistic tendencies. Everyone. Like even this conversation is slightly narcissistic because we're focusing on the self. So narcissism is a spectrum. It's like empathy is at one side and narcissism's on the other. And we all wax and wane between those two extremes. Narcissistic personality disorder is, it's actually really heartbreaking because they can't metabolize emotion. So you pretty much know that you're not a narcissist if you've ever considered that you were, because a narcissist would never consider that. They would never be like, oh, that's not me. I'm not a narcissist. For me, I'm like, am I? Oh my God. Like that's terrifying.
Oh yeah. When someone said that I'll never forget. I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And I did like this fucking deep dive. I became obsessed with like, oh my God. And I was trying to fix all the parts that maybe would have made me a narcissist.
Right. I'm a narc. Oh no.
Oh yeah. It was awful.
Well, the good
Yeah.
news is you are, and so am I, and so is everybody on the planet. So everyone is a narcissist. But it's just like we all have narcissistic tendencies because anything that focuses on the self, a healthy dose of narcissism is required for healing. You have to have it. You also have a ton of empathy. So you're capable of metabolizing your emotions. So I hate to break it to you, and I'm sure this is really sad to hear, but you're not a narcissist. I know, I'm sorry. I hope that doesn't destroy your day. Fuck.
No, it doesn't. Not yet.
But like the interesting thing about what you're saying is because the inner child and the higher self are connected to the same frequency sort of cable attachment, the minute you start to go towards your light, the inner child's going to get activated and vice versa, right? So they're attached to the same string. So when I'm working with a client, I describe it this way because I work for both of those parts of you. I work for your intuitive self and I work for your inner child. So the intuitive self's like, Nathan, you're supposed to be doing this. This feels good. This is you on stage, doing this thing, creating connection and connecting to people. That's you. And the inner child will immediately chime in and say, yeah, but it's scary. I'm scared. Mm-hmm. So you're allowed to be both moving in the direction of where you want to go and feel fear because those are two really real parts of you. But I feel like when we were able to interpret this intuitive information, which is like, hey, you're supposed to do this. And then this sort of human emotion, which is like, that's scary. And I've never seen or done that before. Both things can be true. And authenticity is a paradox. This is how I describe authenticity, like real quick, just so you know, is when you are equal parts a piece of shit and the shit at exactly the same time. Right? And the human ego can't hold paradox. The ego is like, you get to be one or the other. And you and I both know which side of the yin yang symbol you went to get your certainty and your significance before your awakening. It was in the light. You were like, I will be nice and good and successful and everything will be good. I'm just going to repress all this other stuff over here. The dark night of the soul comes in and says, we love that you can do that. Now it's time for you to be really yourself. Here's this other dark shit that you've never fully dealt with. So we're going to integrate that. Integration is when we take both of these parts of ourselves and pull them together. That is a superpower right there. Authenticity is the highest frequency on the planet, higher than love. It's higher than love because you can't interact with love responsibly unless you're super authentic. Most love is transactional, conditional, codependent. But when we're authentic and when we can do that, it's pretty powerful shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an unfolding thing. Yeah.
That's amazing. That really, it really opens my eyes because I feel I'm very self-aware. But I also feel, I still have trust issues with self, which is
so do I.
stupid as shit.
Yeah, of course. Oh my God, no, it isn't.
And you've proved, but we've proven there's such a track record of proof. I fucking should have listened to myself over here because I was fucking spot on. It wouldn't have hurt so bad. Or the door, I knew that I can physically see the door now. And when I walk closer to it, which now reminds me of, I can visualize when I'm getting closer to it. It's kind of like that game when you're just like, hey, help me find the remote. You're warmer. You're getting warmer. I can feel myself getting warmer. If I'm not creating, if I am not creating or moving toward that door that now I'm going to use, I don't feel alive. I really don't. And anything that is not moving, and I want to walk through it, right? I want to get to this point of just such, I want to have such big, excuse my analogy, but big, massive moose balls that I just walk through that door. So yeah, that's all. I mean, that makes me feel really good. It's affirming.
You're doing it right? Let's talk about self-trust and self-betrayal, because I think that this is really important to understand. Okay. Because I love that you're saying it this way, and I hope this helps people put this together, right? So inner solidity, I call it being unfuckwithable. That's my job, is to help people remember that they are, that no matter what happens to them, they're going to be okay. If you know who you are and you're in your integrity is not about being a good person. That's not integrity at all. Integrity is a whole person. Whole, WHOLE. When we have trauma, it's HOLE. We have a hole inside of us, right? When we heal and we practice authenticity and integrity, we become whole, WHOLE. So when we're kind of finding our way through this, when we're feeling our way through, because that's the only way to do it. You can't think your way through this. You can only feel your way through it. What we're building is self-trust. And self-trust is not like, you pay your taxes, you have your car inspected, you're responsible. Like, most of those things are actually byproducts of self-betrayal, right? To be honest, things that make you a responsible grown-up often require copious amounts of self-betrayal. It's so overrated. Some of the most responsible people I know are the most miserable. I'm like, I love your 850 credit score, but you have no relationship with your grandkids. Awesome job. So good for you. You figured out how to work in the matrix, but you have no idea how to be yourself. No wonder you drink yourself to sleep every night.
Right.
They're trying to manage that void, because that void is the HOLE that they've never dealt with. And when we start practicing authenticity and integrity and self-awareness and applying these things and listening to what's going on in our bodies, we begin to build self-trust. Self-trust is moments where we build awareness about who we are. That's part of the equation, right, on this side. And then we apply that awareness to our life, which is integrity. The totality of awareness and what we do with the awareness equals self-trust, right? So I can imagine that when you got, this is such a great example, Nathan, because I can see where this happened. There was self-trust being built in your decision to take a sabbatical, right? That was a self-trust move. Now, the matrix or the people in your life might have been like, what the fuck? That is so irresponsible. But in terms of you and that little boy inside of you, he's like, oh my God, you're finally prioritizing me. Thank you. Now we're in a state of trust, you and your inner child. When you went back towards the business, that was copious amounts of self-betrayal to do it. And the little boy inside of you is like, we were just there. So when you step back into that space, it destroyed your self-trust and also looked really responsible on the outside. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Does that make sense?
1000%
So,
it does.
right? Like, and think of this, like, for people that, another example of this would be like responsible stuff. I don't know. Let's say that somebody clearly is gay. They're gay. They're whatever, they're gay. And, on paper in their family, this is what we do. Like, we marry a girl. We do these things. This is responsible. This is normal. And, they decide that they're going to do this super brave thing and they're going to come out. Coming out is an act of self-trust. That's trust of the self, right? Everybody else in the family might have issues with it, but that individual human being is now 0.005% more authentic than they were before they did that. In other words, self-betrayal was required to keep them in that codependent loop with the family of like, oh, he's not gay. He's just this. Where it's like, no, he's gay. So now everybody else is in a state of disruption because this truth has disrupted their certainties. But this person trusts themselves more, right? Self-trust is the building blocks of authenticity. Self-betrayal destroys authenticity. And the society we're in is built in self-betrayal. And this is why, there's a booming business on mental health right now. We don't have a mental health crisis in this country. We do not. We have an authenticity crisis. People do not know how to be themselves. Yeah. You nailed it.
That is absolutely, I could hang my hat on that statement. I can hang my hat on that statement. And you're talking about someone coming out, for instance, and then kind of going back inward because they're having that dinner at Thanksgiving and they're like, this is going to be that moment. And for me, I can relate to that with the divorce proceedings. Like whenever you're on paper, when you're talking about, oh, the CEO and president is making fuck you money, right? And then it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing now? Content creator? Musician? Like, I heard 50 times, why don't you get a normal fucking job?
Nathan,
and it's literally,
if I had a nickel for every time I've heard that,
get a
tell me about
normal
it.
fucking job. I was told to go work at a car dealership. How is that a normal fucking job?
This is my rule of thumb, Nathan. Yeah. I don't take constructive criticism from people that haven't constructed shit. I don't.
Amen.
I don't take constructive criticism from people that haven't constructed shit. I am not asking people that have lived their life in the cheap seats for how to be authentic. I'm not doing it. Yeah. And it's funny because like, I totally relate to that. Like, I've had a lot of pushback because I've chosen to take a non-traditional route myself. I was going to go back to school for cognitive behavioral therapy. And I was enrolled in the program and I was like, I would rather die than sit in a classroom for another 4 years with somebody to teach me how to think. I already know how to do this. I'm doing it. And, I've been a life coach for 10 years and I've told by my own mother, she goes, it's too bad you're not like a psychiatrist or like a social worker. I was like, I would rather eat glass. And no offense to anybody that wants that job. That is not me. I'm closer to a witch than I'm ever going to be to a psychiatrist. Like, that's never going to happen. I would rather just be weird. It doesn't feel like the truth. And if it's not the truth, it makes me physically ill. I don't want to be ill. I would rather be perceived in the wrong way. Yeah.
That it really does. It makes me fucking not feel good. I feel sick at my stomach and I feel like my gut health gets, not to go too much. Like I get fucked up when I don't walk towards that door. Honestly.
I understand completely. And once you know, you can't unknow it. Like once you go past that membrane, you can never go back.
Right.
And it's expensive. Like, we have to remember that 85% of the planet is not self-aware. 85% of this planet is not self-aware. 85%.
That's
So
insane.
no wonder that nobody is like cheering. They're not, they're not awake. And it's okay. It's okay. There's no judgment. But
Hmm.
with people that are not at that level of awareness, without 1 ounce of judgment, their opinions don't have enough value at that level to give anybody any kind of advice about how to live their lives at all. That
How
just don't.
how do you respond to your mother, who you love, I'm sure, obviously,
I love her very much. Yeah.
when she says it's too bad you aren't like for people who, there are a lot of people who really listen to their families, and
Hmm.
that probably could hurt somebody, right? So how do you respond to that? Because she says it in love.
She does, like, because the people that love us the most are gonna be the most scared when we're weird. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like they're like
Oh yeah.
concerned. That's their job. It's like it's her job to be concerned. It's her job to be, because she loves me. And so I guess I respond to it truthfully. It depends on different levels of my life. There are parts of my life where, I think like you in many ways, I felt so deeply misunderstood for so many years of my life, including by my mother. And, my mother used to say to me as a little girl all the time that I got the wrong mother, all the time. She didn't know what to do with me. I'm just like
Hmm.
weird. But I think when she said that to me, my favorite prayer, and I don't consider myself a religious person, but I'm very, very spiritual. Like my relationship with spirit is probably the most important relationship in my life besides with my kids. My favorite prayer is, forgive them, Father. They know not what they do. She's doing the best she can. So my response is, I get it, Mom. I get it. Yeah, I understand why you would feel that way. I totally understand it. I appreciate that. So, it's okay that she doesn't get it. It's okay that she doesn't have a way to kind of put that in a box that makes sense to her. She's allowed to feel that way. And I'm 100% respecting of that. It doesn't mean I'm going to take her advice or I'm going to try to explain it to her, but it's certainly give her permission to feel whatever she needs to feel about it without any judgment. It took me a while to get there. It sounds very like altruistic right now. That wasn't always the case. I think at certain times in my life, I felt very angry and a lot of shame, a lot of grief, a lot of confusion. Because what you just really need is that unconditional support and love. And what you get is conditionality. In exchange for you being normal, we will accept you. And it feels really, I don't know, like scary when you really claim this, because you're not getting a lot of quotation mark traditional support because people don't know where to place it.
No
But
idea.
that's normal. It's normal.
What's something that someone can do? What's a daily act someone can do just to constantly be? There's a book, forget the name of it, but always talk about being 1% better. Just
Mm,
1%, doing something just a little different today than you did yesterday, massive results. What's something that you think people can do?
I think probably the most important thing somebody can do, and it can happen very incrementally, is completely begin to reframe their relationship with their emotions. Just reframe it. If they could do one thing that profoundly impact their life in a positive way, it's to not consider difficult emotions bad, and instead reframe that as a place to be curious and connect to that non-linguistic intelligence, like shame, guilt, grief, fear, anger. They all mean stuff. They don't mean you're sick. They mean that there's something that's trying to talk to you. So even if that's the reframe, like a perspective shift, which doesn't require a whole big heavy lift, it starts to like get somebody to think like, I never thought about that in that way. Like when I
Right.
feel uncomfortable or when I'm triggered or when I feel not great, maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe it's some part of me trying to help me remember something or to understand something. And I feel like that's one small thing people can do, is to reframe their perception of their own emotional experiences. They mean
I love
stuff.
that. That's That's amazing because I do agree. I grew up
Yes.
being told, like you hear a lot of people, I grew up being told I'm too emotional. I grew up being told I'm too this. I don't really know, but the emotional thing is something that resonates because like you hear people say you're being too emotional. No, motherfucker, like you're being that way because there's something like you just said that needs to be listened to, and I think that acknowledging and permitting self to feel a certain way is a beautiful, beautiful suggestion. I love that.
Yeah.
You just fixed
Yeah.
me.
Oh,
No,
about that. You fix
that
yourself.
no,
Yeah.
it's so cool. You hit the nail on the head because like resonance, like I do. I resonated with you. I think it's awesome that you're in a appreciate you showing up
Me too.
because you didn't
So
you
glad to
didn't
be here.
have to. It didn't. It's hard to sometimes, right? But
Hmm.
beautiful things come from that. And I do believe there's victory in suffering. And I do believe that it's very important the works you do. I really hope that you feel um I hope that I always call it a pep in the step, you know? I hope
Hmm.
that your day, your tomorrow, you feel just like that warm fuzzy feeling knowing that you're doing something bigger than yourself. And it's appreciated. It really is.
Cute.
It is. I am so grateful. I am. We've been talking for an hour and 40.
I know it's crazy, right?
We could
It
keep
goes
going
like
all
so
day
fast.
long, baby, but no, it's just so
Yeah.
cool. It really is. And I'm going to make sure in the description that people are able to find you on all the socials. And you said you're
Hmm.
working on a course right now, which
Yes.
can you share just a tidbit of what that's going to look like?
Sure. My coach will be very happy.
Yeah.
Um, so it's basically like right now my practice is so busy that I can't really onboard anybody new. But I want to create a community. So I've been working on a course for the past 6 months, and it is basically a course on how to understand how to interpret your emotions, like kind of like we talked about, like to navigate like authenticity. So it's basically like how to help people begin to live life in the ways that you and I are speaking about right now. You know, like how to be yourself, really, how to like actually have the steps to figure out without like Trish Law being like her weird, crazy self and being like, hi, this is who you are, to figure out how to do this. And so that's going to be the course. It's basically how to become unfuckwithable. That's the course. And so it's going to be 3 different components. We're going to do a self-paced course so people can just do it when they want to. We're going to do a cohort, which is going to have a little bit more, I'll be a little bit more involved with that than I would be with just the self-paced course. And then we're going to do a high-touch group. So we're going to have a community, and we're going to work through these steps together in a group format, and that should launch in June. So that's kind of what I've been spending my time doing, is creating that content. So it's awesome. I'm
Isn't
excited.
that is exciting. That is exciting. Are you one of those people that Gary Vee calls it good is good enough? And it's not that you're settling. It's just like at certain point, Trish, you're going to have to just fucking put the pin down. Are you somebody that's like, all
Yep.
right, I can put the pin down? Or are you somebody that wants to get back in the weeds?
No, I'm just like, ship it. Just get this thing out. It doesn't need to be perfect. You know, I think it's going to be building as it goes. I just think that like one of the big things, I think it was like a Seth Godin thing. He's like, put that thing in a box and ship it. It doesn't need to be perfect. So I'm a perfectionist in some ways, but not in others. I'm dyslexic, and you know, so being a perfectionist has never been something I've had access to anyway. Um, but I believe in like, you know, creating that environment. I would rather have the way that people consume this to make them feel like they're at home than anything else. I don't care if things are misspelled. I don't care if it needs to be tweaked as we go, but it's going to launch in April and it's coming out, whether it's ready or not. It's coming out.
Well,
So it doesn't have to be perfect.
I definitely can't wait. I'm
Yeah.
excited for you. I think people are really going to be
Thanks.
blessed by what it is you offer. It's obvious that you give a shit, and that is very important. And you know your
Yeah.
shit. So giving a shit is one thing, but really knowing how to walk alongside someone through the shit is pretty cool. So thank you for caring about what it is you do, but caring about
Thank you.
me. Yeah,
I
means a
care about
lot.
you big
So
time. Of
I
course.
appreciate
Thank you
that.
so
I really
much. I
do.
appreciate it.
Thanks for hanging out
Yeah,
with
thank
me,
you.
and tell Sully I'm sorry I interrupted his was he pouring cereal earlier?
Yeah,
I
but he's
love it.
probably eating pizza or something.
That's
Yeah,
amazing. All right, that dude. Okay, so he's 15, and it's all he does is eat, right?
pretty much.
Is that
Yep,
yeah,
pretty much. Is
yeah,
that your kids too?
yeah? It's scary. Like I'm like, dude, oh my god, how do you? Because they're like, Anderson's 11, but the dude, all
Mm.
he does is eat, and I'm like, you're gonna get in my head. I'm like, you're gonna get fat. No, that kid is. I mean, it's amazing what kids. Kids are amazing. They're so amazing. It's
They're the
wild.
best.
So yeah. Well, I hope you have an awesome weekend, and we're
Me
definitely gonna stay
too.
in touch. I would love that. And
Me
can you do
too.
me a favor? Would you email me very quick blurb so that I can make sure like a bio or something. So I'll be filming something off to the side to introduce you and so forth. So
You got
and
it.
how to
Of
connect
course.
with you. All right. I
Yeah,
appreciate you. I
absolutely.
hope you have an awesome, awesome afternoon.
You too. Thank you so much. I've loved
You're
every second
welcome.
of it.